the LAPD released the names and photos of 9,000 cops, including undercover officers in a dangerous assignment. That's right. And this comes after a journalist, Ben Camacho, made a public records request for the names of officers working undercover. And you would expect the request to be denied because it could impact law enforcement and their safety. But the LAPD actually answered and they provided the information. It's just wild. Check this out from The Guardian. The mistake arose when the city responded to a public records request by releasing the names, photographs, and badge numbers of more than 9,000 officers, close to the entire force. An attorney for the city assured the journalist who had fought and won a legal battle to obtain the records that images of officers working in any undercover capacity are not included. But that turned out not to be true. Yeah, that's right. The issue comes as the officer whose information was released, well, all those officers, they weren't warned about it. None of the officers, undercover or otherwise, were given advance warning or offered an opportunity to raise objection to their public information request. Many of them have reported threats to themselves and their families and have told the police union that they are fearful for their safety. They are considering quitting the force. Now, this issue that we know now that this information has been put out there, it could also be a matter of putting these officers in harm's way clearly, in addition to really almost erasing all of the hard work that they put in their undercover work. I'm kind of flabbergasted that the LAPD, well, no, not that the LAPD, I'm flabbergasted that any institution would do this knowing that it jeopardizes the health and safety and the professional work and that investment of their officers. Like, this is gross. I also, one other thing as well is that I want to put it on the journalist. Like, why would you release that information when you knew good and well that this is gonna harm people's lives? Like, I get that you got it and that's sweet and that's good and all, but my God, do you have a conscience? Like, I couldn't roll with that. These are people, they have families. David.
Yeah, there's a certain responsibility that the journalist, I think, had to his community and should have showed his own sort of judgment and perhaps exercised some restraint before releasing this if he did. I'm not surprised, though, that the LAPD or any police department would necessarily make a mistake, though, when it comes to public records. And so many journalists and auditors and people out there who have tried to get public records have been met with people who are so incapable and so incompetent and provide the wrong information or don't provide any information. And then when they do provide information, it's filled with errors. And so I can sort of imagine that there's somebody in the public records department at the LAPD who's responsible for figuring this out, for figuring out how to comply with this order that they turn over the information, who doesn't realize, you know what, I could turn over this database, but it's got all these pictures of these guys. Well, that's supposed to be where the line is, right? You release the names, but you're not supposed to release the pictures. And if somebody's not paying close attention and satisfying this public records request, then a mistake like this happens. And this kind of mistake, though, happens on a different scale at police departments every day, trying to get transparency from police, from an institution that often does not like transparency, doesn't know how to provide it, doesn't know how to provide it with safeguards. It is next to impossible. I hope the LAPD can learn from this and other police departments can learn from this as well, because yes, certain things must be kept out of public. Certain things must be kept private. But at the same time, there should be a responsive effort to accommodate when you are ordered to provide certain information, you should do it, but don't make stupid mistakes.
Absolutely, and I wouldn't be surprised, nor would I shame on an officer who's had their information released for suing the county, the government, because it's like, that was reckless. You knew I was working in a position that required I be undercover to protect my safety. And I continue to go into these situations where I am generally unsafe. And yet you made that even more dangerous for me by virtue of this recklessness. But I can tell you for right now, the only one doing the suing is the LAPD police union. Yeah, they filed a complaint. And they're also trying to sue Ben Camacho, the journalist who made the public records request, along with the police accountability group that posted the information online. But as we know, the case is likely to be dismissed. But at the same time too, still, I would really advocate for using better judgment, because just because police tend not to be our friends, they tend not to look out for we the people, they still are people. And there are people in their lives who do not deserve to be harmed. And that's what would happen when you release all of their information and photos of them. It's not right. And like one of my girlfriends, her husband was undercover NYPD narcotics for 20 years. And the thought that, knowing what went into his work, and the thought that if he were ever outed in any way, how it could impact her and their 3 young children, it's disgusting.